There's no warranty. Now she's got like $7,000.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, pretty much good luck to you.
And how much was that repair?
About a $7,000 repair.
$7,000.
Go ahead. Thank you.
News Hour show that if there's no deal when the ceasefire expires Wednesday, then, quote, lots of bombs start going off. Vice President J.D. Vance is hoping he can cool things down. He is headed to Pakistan. The Democrats were also overseas, believe it or not. Governor Tim Walz and Senator Chris Murphy out in Barcelona to bash Trump and America's war effort.
We've got a feeble-minded, trigger-happy president who plunged us into a war where no threat was present.
Oh, you are a jerk.
Objectives and no
Class A jerk and liar.
We need to call that what it is. That's fascism. Or at least it's fascist curious. I want to bring you greetings as well.
And shame on you too, buddy. You don't deserve any elected office.
The gravity of what we face right now in the United States. This is the most significant threat to American democracy since the Civil War.
You're the threat.
Donald Trump and our
you and that other idiot.
End our democracy.
And all of you's like that.
California Democrat Ro Khanna says America has lost all moral credibility to a regime that murders its own people in the streets.
The enriched uranium is
and this guy is really a total jerk.
Regime there.
Ro Khanna from California, out there with all the crooks.
We actually have more leverage over the Strait of Hormuz. We have less. China has more influence in Iran, and we've lost our entire moral credibility.
All right, Greg, can I go to you first about Walz and Murphy being in Barcelona?
It's Barcelona. Barcelona. That's the correct way of saying it. Comes naturally to Walz. Greenland. Walz goes to a foreign country to bash the president of the United States, and he's the only governor in American history to have his state conquered by pirates. Think about it. I mean, it's like he is the last guy anybody should listen to. He's like a teenager that goes on a message board to like Reddit or something to bash Sydney Sweeney. It's therapy for the unpopular. The reason why he gets a warm embrace there is because they don't know what he's done. The only way he can get any recognition is if they don't recognize him. Who is this guy? They don't like Trump. He doesn't like Trump. That's okay. Again, it's a Trump alignment problem. If Walz goes abroad to bash Trump, he's also bashing America because he is the agent for America, and he's seeking out an audience that actually appreciates it. He is, in effect, a traitor, but we already knew that. Now, I will defend Democrats because they are the opposition party, and you really only have one role: opposition. This is why when we talk about how politically divided we are, it's true, but it's also kind of baked in the system. You can't expect the Dems to embrace the Republicans when the Dems aren't in power. That's how it works. However, you do expect fierce opposition with a measure of responsibility. If there are two boxers in the ring, there's an agreement one isn't going to enter the ring with a switchblade. But they've decided that Trump is Hitler. Therefore, you can suspend the rules. You can unleash lawfare, you can create hoaxes, you can involve foreign actors, and you can let other countries to trash the president because he's different. He's different. But this is still the same thing. It's still treason.
Yeah, Harold, I know that you would never do this, but I would like to think that I would even defend Democrats if I were to go on foreign soil and talk about America. We're on the same team here, aren't we?
We are. First, I hope everybody had a good weekend and
had a great one.
It's great to be around the table.
That's awesome. I had a great time. You want to hear about it?
I enjoyed our contact over the weekend about the Bible. But let me say a couple things. I wouldn't go overseas and talk about the president like that. But we've reached a new era in politics, and people do things that the norms are not what they used to be. But I want to get back
and
to...
And they might say that he does it to them. I get that, but I just...
Oh, no, I'm not even saying it. I think I'm not that kind of... I think it's wrong, period. I wouldn't go over there and attack and say, well, they would do this to me. That's just not my style. I'm not judging anybody who does.
But you should judge.
The president... I want to get back to just readiness for one moment. We were here just a few days ago, and there was a lot of excitement and optimism around the table, rightly so, that we could find ourselves to a deal with the Iranians. We have not. A couple pieces of advice. First, to the president, the nonstop use of social media to share your ideas and to share the optimism, I would stop. Because three things have happened. First, our military has been flawless in their execution. Tactically, we have won the war. The president is correct in that assertion. But the problem is people are still experiencing high prices for gasoline. The global economy seems to be arrested because of the closing of the strait. That's Iran's leverage. They know that. So when the president uses social media to say we have them right where we want them, essentially, or even worse than that, these are people who've read the art of the deal. These are people who have been fooling us, who have been toying with us and killing Americans since 1979. And their threshold for pain is just more than ours. The strategic goal we're trying to get done here is to get all of their enriched uranium. I think a way to get Democrats and others, at least some Democrats on your side, and to maintain the support of Republicans, and more importantly, the country, again, is to stop with some of the bellicose, to stop with some of the hyperbole, and allow for a serious sit down. I know some of the fear, Jesse, might be that the deal that the president gets may look a little bit like, or at least the frame of it may look a little like what President Obama got. Who cares? If we get a good deal and we're able to get them to stop enriching uranium and we get all of that they have for the next 20 years, that is a huge win for the country and for the world. I just think the strategy the president's pursuing right now is one that is fraught with real risk and if not danger, because the Iranians are proving to be far more wily negotiators than we thought they were.
Jesse, your name was invoked.
This is a direct quote, Harold, from the New York
Harold,
Times.
you're
Over
wrong.
last year, U.S. airstrikes have crippled Iran's nuclear program. Iranian nuclear facilities lie in ruins. Enriched uranium is thought to be deeply buried under rubble. It's from the New York Times. Now, the one site we haven't hit is Pickaxe Mountain because they have tunnels underneath there that are 2,000 feet deeper than Fordo. And now there's discussions about using toxic chemicals in there, spraying it so it's inhospitable for about 100 years. So either way, you go in and take it under enemy fire, or you go in with the enemy in tandem and take it out. Whatever it is rough stuff. But the president seems 100% committed to securing this uranium and doesn't really care about these ankle-biting Democrats. He says he feels no pressure from them, and he remains extremely focused on that uranium, which gives me a lot of confidence. And then it's not like these Democrats went to Jamaica and said this. They went to Spain, who just disallowed us to use our bases to conduct this mission. It was a delinquent and disloyal NATO ally. That's a really bad symbolism. Now, the ceasefire is about as fragile as my ego. And the regime is fractured. Like, the regime thinks that the whole negotiation is a setup for us to attack again. Some of the mediators feel more flexible, and then the military is like, we're going to have no restrictions on missiles, no restrictions on proxies, and then as a big FU, clip 2 vessels on Saturday. Now, I didn't know if they did that to gain leverage going into the ceasefire, or it's some rogue commander out of the shattered chain of command that's freelancing. I have no idea, but I do know the Navy took custody of a blockade runner, and it was an Iranian vessel sanctioned. It was coming from China, and the Washington Post said it was probably bringing in chemicals which are dual use, which are used to manufacture missiles. So we caught China red-handed, and they're dirty, and we're going to make them pay the price for that. And so the next 40 hours, anything can happen, and we'll see what happens.
What's the spray thing? I'm curious.
So it's like this horrible agent that you spray deep inside the tunnel that no man can go in under.
I think that's it's called the Nadler vaccine.
Yes. I think that's what they called it.
They're looking for approval for it right
Yes,
now.
yeah.
It's being tested in the lab.
Yeah, yes, they've been collecting the flatulence of Jerry Nadler for 10 years just for this moment.
Yes, it's a WMD.
Emily, President Trump has been trying diplomacy. He's trying to nudge it along, urge it along, cheer it along. But as Rebecca Heinrich said this morning, we might be back into a military posture if we can't get to some arrangement.
Which he never took off the table. And he was clear that if negotiations kept falling back or failed within a short time frame, then he would not hesitate to bring out the military again. And obviously clearly threatens more bombs and bombs and more bombs. I'd like to go back to Walls on foreign soil talking smack about our country, because I feel like it's so aberrant, and it reminds us of when Gavin Newsom and Ilhan Omar were at that foreign conference in Germany, not knowing what they were talking about and making us look weak. And I feel like it's sort of like your family. You can complain about your sibling to a friend, but if someone opens their mouth against your sibling, you are rolling up your sleeves. Do not go to a foreign country and talk about us and talk about our president in such a disrespectful way and say that we are so weak. And by the way, this was a socialist summit spearheaded by Spain's prime minister, 6,000 attendees that paid to, it's basically the Coachella or the Burning Man of Europe. No one is serious and no one takes it seriously. You're right, they have no idea who Walz is. But you know who does know who he is the Minnesotans that are under his watch, that are watching him fly across the country, fly across the pond on someone else's dime, rant and rave about this country and this president, while he let $9 billion in fraud go into the pockets of Somalis and other people. Talk about abdication. I mean, that's like if the show opened and this seat was empty and I was frolicking around in London talking smack about you guys. When is someone going to hold him accountable instead of representing him as somehow the future of the Democrat Party? And then Chris Murphy goes on to say, we need to share experiences to understand how we can fight back against the Republicans. They keep trying to buy votes. What about earning votes? What about saying why? Why don't Americans like our policies whatsoever? And then he talks about that President Trump is the one that is destroying our democracy. When we know that you destroy democracy by eroding norms and capitalizing the press and suppressing the free speech, capture of information, all of these things, as I'm looking at how do you degrade democracy in this slow way, the Democrats have had a handle on this whole time. They are the ones that wielded the administrative state like a weapon. They prosecuted President Trump. They all the intelligence officers signing a letter that this hogwash is true about Russian collusion with a president. Like, at all times, we've been canceled and silenced. The free press, free voices, and so much more. We've been prosecuted in administrative ways. And somehow this president, who gave us our voices back, are somehow to blame for eroding democracy. So I feel like instead of flying across and attending a summit, they should just hold a mirror up to their own face for the answer.
All right, we have much more. Barack Obama and Zohran Mamdani are teaming up for socialist story time.
Yeah, they look like a bunch of children there. Fifth graders. No, maybe not. Fourth graders. They might not even be, maybe they're third graders.
When you spend 100 years building change.
It's kindergarten for commies. Barack Hussein Obama, if that's his real name, hooking up with his socialist protege Zohran Mamdani and singing to kids at a child care center in NYC.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round,
Yeah, but those buses aren't free, kids. Mayor Mamdani also dished into NBC about his relationship with Trump, doubling down on his socialist bona fides.
I have something that no one else does, which is that I'm from New York City, and New York City holds a very special place for him, as well as for me. We're both from this same city. So I think we see in those decisions the worth of a relationship that is both honest and direct and looking to be productive. And that honesty means acknowledging places of disagreement.
Now that you've bumped up against the hard realities of a $5.4 billion budget shortfall and the other red tape that you have to go through, do you still believe in democratic socialism? Do you still think it can be effective?
I believe in it even more than I did the day before.
So many words, Dana.
So many words.
So little wisdom. I didn't know that Trump was from Uganda.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah. Why do you think Trump went there? Obama.
Obama.
Gee whiz.
Okay, so a few things. I thought it was notable that remember Obama early on when we had the mayor's race here, he decided to go ahead and endorse Mamdani when it looked like Mamdani was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Now he won by 51%. It's not like it was a big landslide. But I wonder also if Mamdani fully embracing his socialism, his democratic socialism party, if Obama doesn't think, I wish I'd done more in that regard. I think it's notable that Mamdani says, Obama, you want to come to the free bus thing with me? And not Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. She is not the leader of the party. I think Mamdani still believes that Obama is the leader of the party and he would like to get there. There are a lot of words, so many words. I thought the Wall Street Journal editorial about how Zoran's government grocery stores could kill the bodega is pretty interesting. And who's the queen of the bodegas? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? And I haven't heard anything from her about that, because what I thought was creepy about last week when he did the video saying we're going to raise these property taxes on the millionaires, we get real close to the camera, it's that to him and to people who support him, the accomplishment is raising the tax.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the accomplishment. Not that you get something for raising the taxes, that we stuck it to them,
right,
raise the taxes, and still the quality of life isn't any better for anyone.
That is such a good point, Harold. I doubt you have an answer for it. But it's like, it really is like, look, we raise taxes. Well, do you know, you're a businessman first and foremost. You know what will happen, especially if you start driving out people who buy expensive apartments. It's not like other people are going to get it. Is this whole point to make it so that you can't sell expensive property, so you end up with public housing and the whole place goes to hell?
I don't know. It's unclear to me what the goal is here. I think Dana touched on something important. He likes, the mayor likes, he's a narrow kind of politics. He likes declaring victory by saying things. And I think he needs to understand, you're not going to solve, every politician needs to understand, you're not going to solve the challenges of your city, or for that matter, our country, by taxing our way out of it. There's no doubt there's a fairness issue when it comes to taxes, but for the life of me, I can understand if I'm a mayor of a city and a person, a man or woman, wanted to buy a $240 million piece of real estate, pay property taxes, pay everything on it, whether they live there full time or not, that's a win for the city and for the residents of the city. I think the mayor is starting to learn that it's easier to run for the office of mayor in the most populous city in the country than it is to be mayor. Now, I like this right here with he and Obama, but I think DP raised another point. How do you connect this with results? What is the outcome we're trying to achieve? I would have thought the mayor, when he appointed his leaders of all of the departments in our great city, would have said to all of them, I want you to find me, each of you, 5 to 10% in cuts. There have to be some redundancies, if not waste, if not fraud. Let's start there if we're going to ask the city to invest in a huge agenda to help educate kids, help provide more health care, and equally important, to help grow the city's economy by attracting new talent, new capital, which generally translates into innovation. I don't hear the mayor talking about any of those things. So this narrow way of governing mirrors what happens during the campaign, where you talked about taxing people and giving things away for free. The greatest Democratic president, I think, in the 20th century, who challenged the nation, I've said it before, was John Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He was doing, America was doing a lot for citizens, but he also wanted Americans to work. The way you present this, Mr. Mayor, I know you have a good heart and you want good things for the city, but you can't just tax everybody and give everybody's money away without telling us or showing us how you're going to make our city better, more productive, safer, more educated, and healthier. And thus far, it's just a lot of talk.
What say you, Emily? Kind of ironic, he's singing Wheels on the Bus after, breaking his promise that bus rides would be free to that very population. I'm assuming that was the population he was talking to. Children, innocent children that he's betraying. Those children will grow up without free buses. What kind of horrible man would promise that and then just take it from them and then laugh in their faces with a song to remind them of their devastation?
A bad Santa.
Yes.
I mean, you say it's narrow. I think it's just simply immature. I mean, he's naive. Like, remember when he was pressed by a reporter recently, he was essentially like, yeah, so nothing's been free, nothing you promised has worked out. What do you have to say for yourself? Do you still believe in these principles? And he said, yeah, more than ever. We elected a senior class president. I keep saying it. It's so embarrassing. Let's talk about President Obama, though, for a second, who isn't embarrassing. And he is someone who said, we don't promise equal outcomes, we promise equal opportunity. He's the one that insisted that we should never replace our market system with something else. He reminded us that it's not government that creates wealth in our country, it's the American people, and that we do not believe in the primacy of the state. We believe individuals should be empowered to make their own choices. I have a whole host of phrases from the president talking about capitalism and how it works and how that is what builds wealth and prosperity. Where is all that now? hobnobbing with the mayor, the king of socialism, of communism. Where is that guidance? Where is those values? And I think what we're seeing is just strategy above all else. And I'm sick of being disheartened by it because it's the same logic that we just saw with Swalwell, where the whole Democratic Party said, well, the alleged rapist isn't good for governorship, but you know what? We better keep him in Congress. He's good enough to keep a seat warm for the blue. I mean, it's so obvious that there's been a sacrifice of these ideals and these values simply for strategy. And the thing is it's obviously so toxic, but it's also self-cannibalizing. So until the party gets a backbone and sounds like you, and it's driven by common sense, then they will not only cannibalize themselves, but they're going to take our cities with us, this one included.
Socialism and rape are very different things. I want to be very clear. I don't agree with Madami that he's not a rapist, nor is Swalwell been proven to be. I understand what you're trying to say, but don't. I think that's an unfair comparison. I'm against both socialism, but I abhor rape.
It's a perfect. Here's why it's a perfect analogy. However, it's the point is that it's strategy above ideology, and that the party, rightly so, condemned an alleged rapist, but said, drop out of the race, but keep your congressional seat. That's where I'm saying the distinction is. That if they meant it, they would say, sir, please step away.
Resign now?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, okay.
They were called on.
Jesse, you love singing to children. And does it bother you that these children were exploited?
At first I thought, this is First Lady stuff. Men don't do this.
Yes!
Totally.
Don't sing nursery rhymes to preschoolers. Men don't sit Indian style next to other men.
Perfect point. Yes.
And then I thought, wait, I've sung nursery rhymes. I've read to my children at their class.
Have you?
I got
Yes.
to see that.
Oh, that's
At their class?
Yeah, I go to their class, and then you read books to them, Greg.
In New York City?
I don't do it with other guys, though.
Yeah.
And I do it to my kids. I don't do it to random
What I'm saying is parents, when their kids say, Jesse Waters read to us in class, I would have loved to see the parents.
Well, you know what I read?
What?
Get it together. But I don't know. Then I think it's fine. But socialism sounds great until you do the math. Like, you can't bring in 2 million poor people from Latin America and then chase out the rich and then say everything should be free. You just can't do it. The government-run grocery store, I did the math. So if you subsidize the food and make the food cheaper, then everybody in the neighborhood goes to the store and then buys it all out. Like that. And then you have empty shelves.
Yes.
And then everybody shows up and the shelves are empty and they're like, what the hell? I thought this stuff was cheap. And then they get angry. So the store has to order more food and subsidize it more, puts out the bodegas, puts out the mom and pop shops, and then they just sink more money into the stupid store. And then they can't afford anything else. It's like what the Europeans did. They sunk it all into socialism and now don't have a navy to go get their oil out. And now they're weak. Now they're singing songs in Indian style.
I'm not seeing the kids with you Indian style. We should go to schools.
We can't do that together.
You should write a song.
Do your
Queen
knees
of
still
the
do that?
Bodega.
What?
There should be a song called Queen of the Bodega.
Queen of the Bodega.
Yes.
I'll write that.
Yes. Fox News alert, Lori Chavez de Ramirez has resigned as labor secretary for taking a job in the private sector. Keith Sonderling will take the role of acting secretary of labor. Pretty exciting stuff there. Coming up next, the Dems are marching to their own stupidity.
Okay, where did it start it? You didn't start it.
That's all you care about, obviously.
Environment. Benefiber's plant-based prebiotic fiber gently nourishes the good bacteria, working with your body to help your gut and you flourish effortlessly every day. Grow what feels good with Benefiber.
Right up from the gym. 2028 Dem wannabes are trying to rebuild the blue wall. Kamala Harris and other hopefuls showing up at a luncheon for Democratic women in Michigan, where they were predictably light on substance, but full of angry attacks about President Trump.
Shamefully.
We are dealing with the most corrupt, callous, and incompetent presidential administration in the history of the United States.
Governors are on the front line of defense against an out-of-control, unchecked, and unhinged President Trump.
There is a storm in our nation. There is darkness and wind. People are getting hurt. What we
these people are going to have a heart attack. They hate Trump so
we need
much.
foot soldiers of our democracy who in times of trial are willing to stand up. Will you stand for our democracy?
No, not for you.
And Democrats at another event in Michigan going viral for all the wrong reasons. Greg, I'm never going to dance shame someone, but wait, that was Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Mallory McMorrow dancing Kamala style to a marching band in a very cringy video that's gone viral. Wait, why was Cory Booker talking at a women's caucus?
That is ironic. He has main character syndrome.
Totally.
He is basically an extra in a movie who thinks he's the star, and so he has to overcompensate by screaming. Look, by the way, the marching band thing I'm fine with. They're not singing. That is like a definite improvement that they've stopped singing and now they just dance. I'll take it. You've heard them sing. You know, the Trump hate has filled up the brain so they can't think about anything to do. They know what to say, but there's nothing for them to do. And it's actually kind of dangerous because, you know, since Trump has been squatting in the lane of common sense, whatever the Dems seek has to be not in that lane. They don't want to be seen close to him. This is why they keep doubling down on trans. They keep defending sanctuary cities for illegal criminals. These are things that are against common sense and the will of the people, but they still do it because it's not Trump. I worry that the Democrats, as a moderate, sensible alternative, is not going to come back ever. If Harold Ford, I'm citing you, would enter the race, I would wonder how soon would they change? Or how soon would they try to force him to change? Suddenly, would Harold be on TV talking about how, you know, men who think they're women should be in sports? Would he change? And the reason why I say that, Harold, is because in the A block, you said, this is not something I would do regarding Tim Walz. This is not something I would do. But would they be okay with that? And would you tell them that it's not okay for them to do it? Like, can you even survive in your own party if you were to enter the race? I'm curious. This is a genuine curiosity.
I think you look at a guy like Andy Bashir, a guy like Josh Shapiro, and I would even put Governor Whitmer. But I think you can, and if you can't, it's going to be hard to win. Because I think I don't know whose segment this is. I'm jumping in like it's not. I think some of the people. I agree with you, Greg. I think I'm happy to see dancing more than singing, but this is not entertainment. These are serious times for people, and I know the candidates believe that, but this is not, to borrow Emily's invocation of Coachella, this is not the Coachella politics here. You have people paying too much for gas. You have a reality around healthcare that's too expensive for working class people. You have an education system that DP talks about often. There's a mismatch between what people are coming out with from school with their skills and assets based on and compared to what the economy needs. Going forward, there's a complete mismatch. You look at the fact that we have a $39 trillion debt, which we were talking about. No one is talking about. So I think, Greg, you have to talk about serious things. And if you are rejected by voters, you know what? It means that voters aren't.
We just gave off 4 that they won't even mention. They'll talk about gas because they think that's going to be the thing.
But no one tries to give any answers to any of these things, and it's just amazing to me that we'd rather just attack him. You cannot attack Trump. Rage alone is not going to win the presidency.
To be clear, the Women's Caucus was hosting the presidential hopefuls, so obviously that's...
Well, they have a troops.
Yeah, totally. So forget the person I asked earlier, I didn't mean it. But also Bashir, who we used to think was pretty moderate, but then last week he said that the president's going to nuke Iran just to be famous. I mean, to his point, I think they're being fishhooked to the left.
Okay, well,
this way.
I mean, we've seen this before, right? It happens on both sides. But in this case, you have, for example, the normie Democrats are being booed off the stage, and the very far left are getting cheered and standing ovations. And that's where the energy is in the party, and that's why the Republicans might very well have a very good chance of picking up that Senate seat in Michigan.
Jesse, take us home.
Well, you're right. These are serious times, and that's why these people don't scare me. We're at war. There's a naval blockade. We just did a defense deal with Indonesia. We just did AI deals across the Middle East. Donald Trump has crime down to historic lows. We smoked the cartels and DEI in the same year. It's just a grown-up party that are doing grown man things with vision, skills, strategy. And that's why these people come out, they dance and they chit chat. This is not the time for that. This isn't the 90s when everyone's frothing and happy-go-lucky and watching TV. We got to win, and we are winning. And if you don't come with it, you're not going to hang in there.
That's perceptive. If you're not coming,
going?
You're going.
Thank you, Dana. All right, up next, it's a Purple State power play. Dana Perino is taking the book world by storm. Big Bird? Yes, the tern, restoring it in its natural habitat across the pond.
Well, why they wouldn't? That's Have a great night.
I really missed In Your Face, Harold.
It's a good segment.
Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. An Iranian woman living in the U.S. is charged with being a major arms dealer working for the Islamic Republic. The final night of campaigning ahead of the Virginia redistricting referendum. We'll talk to Britt Hume about what's at stake. And NASA provides an update on the deaths and disappearances of at least 11 scientists working on sensitive projects. But first, breaking tonight, a new round of talks between the U.S. and Iran in Pakistan is the subject of speculation at this hour. Fox News is told the American delegation will be leaving Washington soon. Iran is vowing retaliation for the U.S. firing upon an Iran-flagged cargo vessel that tried to evade the American blockade of Iranian ports. That followed Iran's closing of the Strait of Hormuz. All of this comes amid mixed messages from the administration over the impact of conflict-related fuel costs and how long that will last. Senior White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Brett. A source familiar tells Fox the Vice President JD Vance, the Vice President Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner are going to be leaving the U.S. for Islamabad soon, even though the Iranians are threatening not to show up to these negotiations unless the U.S. removes this naval blockade. The tension's very high after American forces seized an Iranian-flagged sanctioned vessel that tried to blast through the blockade this weekend.
President Trump invoking wartime powers Monday, using the Defense Production Act to get ahead of rising energy costs amid the war in Iran. A White House official says 5 signatures from the president now authorize funding from the Big Beautiful Bill for projects like coal-fired power plants, manufacturing facilities for gas turbines and transformers, and electrical production sites, as the Energy Secretary dampens expectations for when gas prices may return to $3 a gallon.
I don't know, that could happen later this year. That might not happen until next year. But prices have likely peaked and they'll start going down.
The president told PBS, I disagree with him totally. I think it'll come roaring down if it ends. But the word if is carrying a lot of weight after the president spent the weekend threatening to resume fighting if a deal isn't reached before the ceasefire ends. Posting Saturday, we're offering a very fair and reasonable deal, and I hope they take it because if they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Hours later, a sanctioned Iranian ship tried to get past the U.S. naval blockade, prompting a military response. Analysts say the new IRGC chief, Ahmad Vahidi, the hardline architect of Iran's proxy terror organizations, may be responsible for the negotiations stalling.
We had the supreme leader killed, and his son has taken over, and he has not been able to demonstrate that he is really in charge. So there's a leadership vacuum for sure, and it's being filled by the IRGC leadership.
Trump says he's in no rush, posting in part, I read the fake news saying I'm under pressure to make a deal. This is not true. Time is not my adversary. We're in it and it will be done right. Even as his top officials don't seem ready to announce the timeline has officially shifted.
At the beginning, the president said in 4 to 6 weeks, we expect this could be resolved, and I think we're getting pretty close to that being accurate.
And the Iranians also deny President Trump's claim that they agreed to hand over their stockpile of enriched uranium, saying that stockpile is sacred to Iran, and handing it off to the U.S. has never been an option on the table, Brett.
Real dichotomy here on that leadership in Iran. Meantime, back here, a big shakeup at the Labor Department this evening with Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer resigning. What do we know about that?
Yeah, Brett, not too much yet. The president did not announce her departure, unlike when Pam Bondi left as AG or Kristi Noem departed DHS. And also, Chavez-DeRemer is headed to the private sector, not another administration job, according to Stephen Chung, the communications director here at the White House, who made the announcement. This all comes as the Labor Department Inspector General is nearing the end of a months-long investigation into misconduct allegations. Deputy Secretary Keith Sonderling is set to take on the role of acting secretary. Right.
Okay, another change. Jackie, thank you. An Iranian national accused of being a weapons broker for her home country is in custody tonight in Los Angeles. Federal agents arrested her Saturday, moments before she was set to leave on a flight to Turkey. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt has details tonight live from Los Angeles. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, Brett. Shamim Mafi was allegedly making millions from arms deals. Today, she is facing 20 years in prison if convicted. She is due to make her first court appearance at the federal courthouse behind me here any moment now. 44-year-old Mafi, who is a lawful permanent resident of the U.S., was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport on Saturday as she prepared to board a flight to Turkey. The criminal complaint against her accuses her of brokering the sale of, quote, armed unmanned aerial vehicles, bombs, bomb fuses, assault weapons, and millions of rounds of ammunition on behalf of Iran to the Sudanese armed forces who are fighting an ongoing civil war there. Officials say just one of those contracts was, quote, valued at over 60 million euros, that's about $70 million, for the sale of Iranian-made Mohajer 6 armed UAVs from Iran's Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics. Included in the complaint is a photo of a crate of cash that Mafi allegedly sent to a co-conspirator in a WhatsApp message after saying she received payment from a Sudanese contact. Mafi first emigrated from Iran to Istanbul, Turkey in 2013 before then moving to Los Angeles. She got her green card here in 2016 and, according to federal officials, quickly began working for Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. It's also worth pointing out, Brett, in the context of the ongoing war and possibly peace talks with Iran, Iran apparently felt perfectly comfortable selling a huge number of those armed drones to another country, despite the looming conflict with the US. That might be a sign of just how easy it is for Iran to make those drones and how many it might still have. Brett?
Jonathan Hunt, live in Los Angeles. Jonathan, thank you. Tonight, authorities are investigating Sunday's mass shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana, that left 7 of the gunman's own children dead, along with another child. It's one of the nation's deadliest shooting rampages in recent years. Correspondent Brooke Taylor has details from Dallas tonight.
For officials in Shreveport, Louisiana, this is the worst scene they've ever responded to. It started as a domestic call early Sunday morning and ended with 8 children dead, 7 of them killed by their own father.
The early mornings of that day will go down in history as one of the worst days that could have ever happened here in Shreveport.
Police say 31-year-old Shamar Elkin's deadly rampage spanned 2 different homes. The victims, children between 3 and 11 years old. Officials say the suspect's wife and girlfriend were also shot and seriously injured.
There are no words that can fully capture the depth of this loss.
Police say a teenager and Elkin's sister-in-law managed to escape, crawling through a window and onto the roof. After the shootings, officials say Elkins fled, carjacked a vehicle at gunpoint, and led police on a chase that ended in a shootout. Officials say it's unclear whether he was killed by officers or by a self-inflicted gunshot.
All evidence and indications are that this erupted as a domestic dispute.
Elkins served in the Louisiana Army National Guard from 2013 to 2020, according to an Army official. He was never deployed and left the Guard as a private. Police say he was arrested in 2019 for illegal use of a firearm. Officials say this tragedy is a stark reminder to families everywhere that domestic violence can't be ignored.
We cannot afford to wait until the next crisis.
And family members say that Elkins recently was struggling with his mental health and sought help. His family also told the Associated Press that he and his wife were going through a separation and they were due in court today, Brett.
Brooke, thank you. The Trump administration is scheduled to implement a refund system for businesses that paid tariffs, which the U.S. Supreme Court ruled were illegal. Refunds total roughly $166 billion. U.S. and Customs Border Protection says importers and their brokers were eligible to begin claiming refunds through an online portal this morning. Stocks were down after major gains last week. The Dow lost 5, the S&P 500 finished off 17, the Nasdaq fell 64. There are increasing questions tonight about President Trump's intentions for Cuba. The president says a new dawn is coming for the island nation, but what exactly that means, still unknown tonight. Senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner is at the State Department.
This great strength will also bring about a day, 70 years in waiting. It's called a new dawn for Cuba.
The State Department confirmed Secretary Marco Rubio dispatched a delegation of senior officials to negotiate in Havana. Last week, a U.S. government plane landed on the island nation's soil for the first time since 2016. As the U.S. fuel blockade worsens an already dire humanitarian crisis for Cuba's people, U.S. officials believe there is an opening to push communist leaders out. Quote, President Trump is committed to pursuing a diplomatic solution if possible, but will not let the island collapse into a major national security threat if Cuba's leaders are unwilling or unable to act. President Trump is reportedly considering a range of options from U.S. military intervention to U.S.-led regime change.
You hear that Cuba is next.
Even Cuba's president, wary of U.S. threats, says at this point diplomacy and dialogue with the Trump administration would be, quote, difficult given the changing nature of American foreign policy.
Cuba has always stood by its commitments, and the United States have not fulfilled its part of the deal.
President Obama ushered in the Cuban thaw of 2016, opening up Americans' access via travel and investment. But subsequent administrations restricted that access, much to the apparent dismay of Obama's inner circle.
Biden was a chicken and was afraid to go back to the Obama policy.
A senior official confirms to us tonight that that delegation met with Fidel Castro's grandson, who is 94 years old, while on the ground in Havana. They also tell us the delegation made demands of Havana, including major reforms like opening up the internet and making sure going forward that they agree to release at least some political prisoners, Brett.
We'll follow it. Jillian Turner, live at the State Department. Jillian, thank you. Up next, Virginia's redistricting battle goes to the voters tomorrow. We'll explain why it has national implications. First, beyond our borders tonight, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake off northern Japan prompts a short-lived tsunami alert. Also sparked an advisory of a higher risk of possible megaquake for coastal areas there. Officials are urging residents in 182 towns along the northeastern coasts to raise their preparedness while continuing their daily lives in Japan. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer acknowledges that he made the wrong judgment when he chose his ambassador to Washington. Peter Mandelson was a friend of the late sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein. Starmer says he would have withdrawn the appointment if he had known Mandelson failed security checks, but Starmer is refusing to step down despite intense internal criticism over the move and his handling of it. And this is a live look at Budapest, Hungary, courtesy of EarthCam. One of the big stories there tonight. The European Union hosts talks with Palestinian representatives on stability, security, and long-term peace. More than 60 nations sent officials to Brussels for that event. A majority of EU member countries now recognize an independent Palestinian state. Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back. Decide whether the Commonwealth's congressional map should be changed. It's a move that would overwhelmingly favor Democrats. More than 1 million early votes have already been cast. Correspondent Mark Meredith is live in Leesburg, Virginia tonight with the latest. Good evening, Mark.
Brett, good evening to you. Tonight, Virginia Democrats and Republicans are trying to fire up their base ahead of tomorrow's special election. Where we are, they've got barbecue, beer, and in a few minutes they'll hear from the former governor, Glenn Youngkin, who is trying to tell Republicans he wants them to vote no on redistricting the Commonwealth before November. Already, more than a million people, 1.3 million Virginians, have cast their ballot. The early voting wrapped up over the weekend. Virginia has right now 11 congressional districts, with Democrats controlling 6, Republicans 5. Democrats, who right now also control the State House and the governor's mansion, they want a whole new map lasting at least until 2030 following the next census. In the meantime, Democrats would gain a 10-to-1 advantage in House seats. Out on the campaign trail last year, Abigail Spanberger, who's now Virginia's governor, said she was not planning to redistrict. Now she's leading the charge among Democrats, calling for new maps.
So now, as we have seen states take action, Virginia has the ability to do something responsive.
We have to look at this in its totality. This is really a national fight. It's not a fight only about Virginia.
Republicans, they are on the trail too, urging voters to reject tomorrow's ballot referendum, calling it a naked power grab in a swing state.
They have an opportunity to do something that, of course, is unconstitutional. It's illegal, and I think it's immoral what they're doing to try to basically steal the voices from millions of Virginians and disenfranchise them and take the Northern Virginia blue counties and jam them into the rest of the state.
Democrats have a sizable cast advantage when it comes to this contest, but the outcome tomorrow is a little tough to predict. About an hour from now, we're going to hear from House Speaker Mike Johnson. He'll be on a telephone rally as they try to engage Republicans in the state to show up tomorrow. And we'll get those results soon enough, and we'll hear more from the governor a little bit later on this evening. Brett.
All right, Mark, thank you. Let's talk about the Virginia redistricting, other political news. Fox News chief political analyst Britt Hume joins us. Good evening, Britt. You know, NPR says of this, voters say they feel confused and misled on Virginia's redistricting vote. They said campaigns have muddied the waters on the issue, from contradictory direct mail campaigns to a leading ballot question. Here is that ballot question. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections, while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? Shannon Bream asked Senator Tim Kaine about the fairness part this weekend. Take a listen.
Vice President Kamala Harris won by about 5 percentage points, but 90% of House members from Virginia being from one party?
90% of Virginians are not Democrats. That's true.
Correct.
But about 100% of Virginians want election results to be respected. We're deeply worried that Donald Trump will try to interfere with the election results this November or in 2028, because we saw him do it before. And we have to have a Congress that will stand up to it.
I'm sure that deals with the fairness issue. Britt, what are your thoughts?
No, it certainly doesn't. And the one thing this is not an effort to do is to ensure fairness. It is done to ensure that Democrats have many more seats than they do now. And it's an interesting process, Brett, because Virginia, unlike other states, actually had a system set up to take redistricting out of the hands of the politicians, and it gave it to a bipartisan commission split down the middle between the two parties, so that there wouldn't be any of this sort of monkey shines. But states that didn't have such commissions, such as Texas, or such regulations, were redistricting between the 10-year cycles that are normally customary for congressional redistricting. So Virginia decided that it was forbidden to do so by this commission system they had enacted, that they want to undo it with a state constitutional amendment, which is what people are voting on. But it's very confusing because the message is being sent, say, both sides are saying we're trying to restore fairness. Fairness isn't really what it's all about. It's about power, and the Democrats have some, and they think they're in a position to get more.
And it's obviously not about Virginia alone. If you look at a map about redistricting, states pursuing redistricting, the yellow here is the redistricting's complete. The teal color, its efforts are underway, and the orange, they're pending a court decision. But you look at all those states, and you could be looking at a sizable number of congressional seats that, who knows how the midterms are going to turn out, but it could swing the results of the majority.
Well, you know, the saying that's been made about this, and I think it's correct, is that voters are supposed to choose the party they want to vote for. The parties are not supposed to choose the voters.
when you redistrict like this, in a situation where you gerrymander like mad, and this Virginia map is gerrymandered to it fairly well, that's what effectively you're doing. You're just setting it up in such a way that you're sure that you can win by the way you draw the districts, and so that's what's happening here. It is absolutely hardball politics, Brett, to be sure. Both parties are doing it. In Virginia's case is particularly egregious since it had set up a bipartisan commission to take it out of the hands of the politicians, and for this election they want to put it back in their hands.
Yeah, both parties are at it, as you mentioned. Britt, as always, thank you. Up next, the latest information on the deaths and disappearances of at least 11 scientists working on sensitive projects. Then, how the Trump administration plans to make colleges and universities more accountable for student outcomes.
Camping World is America's used RV supercenter. We buy and sell more pre-owned RVs than anyone.
Well, I'm doing my work.
You know what? I'm more important than your filming. And I can't even believe that you didn't realize.
I'm running here and you got me off, hon.
Are you filming everything I'm saying right now?
No, I'm not right now. I was.
Hey, supervillains. Punch her? You're joking me. Looking for a fight? Well, look no further. Cops, all new episodes. Streaming now on Fox Nation.
The president's energy secretary says an investigation into the deaths and disappearances of almost a dozen scientists is underway. The scientists have ties to national security, defense research, and space. Correspondent David Spunt is here with the latest tonight. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. The story continues. Within just the last few hours, a NASA spokeswoman announced, quote, "At this time, nothing related to NASA indicates a national security threat," end quote. She goes on to say more information will be provided at a later time. There are new questions tonight and few answers into 11 missing or dead scientists vanished or killed over the past 3 years.
There's a coordinated investigation across various branches of the government.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright yesterday noting an intensifying probe taking place inside the halls of the Energy Department, War Department, and White House.
We haven't found anything alarming yet.
At least 11 scientists have been killed or have disappeared over the past 3 years. Melissa Casais had a security clearance at Los Alamos National Laboratory and went missing last June. Anthony Chavez, a retired worker from the same lab, went missing a month prior. Jason Thomas led a chemical biology team and was found dead this past March. Frank Maywald, an engineer from NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, also on the list. In February, retired Air Force Major General William Neil McCaslin, who oversaw some of the military's most advanced and highly classified research systems, went missing. His wife said he'd been experiencing what he called a mental fog before vanishing from his home, leaving his phone and prescription glasses behind. Members of Congress pressing for answers.
Hopefully with our bully pulpit, we can maybe bring attention to this and have anyone that knows of any information out there, have them contact Congress.
The highest levels of the FBI also involved.
If there's any connections that lead to nefarious conduct or conspiracy, this FBI will make the appropriate arrest.
Current and retired FBI officials tell Fox News at this point, Brett, there's not one single piece of evidence that connects these cases, but the intrigue is palpable. On Friday, a few days ago, the president teased release of certain UFO files as soon as possible. He called some of those files interesting. Brett?
We've been following that too. David, thank you.
Thank you.
FBI Director Kash Patel is suing The Atlantic magazine for $250 million over an article alleging mismanagement and excessive drinking. Director Patel calls the story a malicious hit piece. The Atlantic says it stands by its reporting and will vigorously defend what it calls a meritless lawsuit. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is confirming to Fox News a murder suspect accused of using a sledgehammer to bludgeon a co-worker to death in Houston last week is a Venezuelan illegal alien who was caught and released at the border by the Biden administration in November of 2023. The man was arrested April 12th after he was found driving around in the victim's vehicle. Police say he used a sledgehammer to kill the co-worker inside of a house they were renovating together. ICE has placed a detainer on him with law enforcement in Harris County, Texas. The Education Department is proposing new rules aimed at holding colleges and universities accountable for student outcomes. It's part of the Trump administration push to overhaul higher education. Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel tells us about it tonight.
For many Americans, graduating with four-year degrees, the transition is not easy.
For those of us just graduating from college, we've been so excited to have a successful career, knowing that we've invested in our education, and then we're surprised to know that technology has replaced those jobs.
Now there's a push to hold colleges and universities accountable for student outcomes as part of a broader effort to overhaul higher education. An Education Department proposed rule would cut off access to federal student loans for programs whose graduates earn less than a typical high school graduate. Undersecretary of Education Nicholas Kent telling us, quote, "The Trump administration's proposed accountability framework is grounded in common sense. If post-secondary education programs do not leave graduates better off, taxpayers should not subsidize them." Federal student loan debt is near $1.7 trillion. One expert telling us with the cost of college approaching $100,000 a year at some private schools, this makes a lot of sense.
At least you can know that if your program passes this earnings premium test, that at least it's not going to leave you worse off than you would have been if you hadn't attended the program at all.
Education Secretary Linda McMahon says another big issue is higher education dealing with students leaving high school unprepared.
I found that many universities have to spend time doing remedial courses for kids who start and come in. They can't do, basic math, and they don't have proficiency in reading.
The Trump administration says it wants a stronger return on investment for both students and taxpayers amid concerns that some debt has left students worse off.
Brett? All right, Mike, thank you. Tim Cook is stepping away from the top job at Apple. The company says John Ternus will become Apple's next chief executive officer September 1st. Ternus is currently senior vice president of hardware engineering. Tim Cook will become executive chairman, where the company says he will engage with policymakers around the world. Up next, our Common Ground segment on bipartisan efforts to deal with China and its relationship with Iran.
Your sisters are running early.
Early? On the strait, on all ships, if all ships don't get out, China is really the one that's going to face the brunt of the pain.
This is the most critical vulnerability that China has, that if we were to secure control over Iran's oil exports, would give us huge strategic leverage, comparable to their leverage over us in critical minerals.
We have a very good relationship with China. He would like to see this ended also. He certainly wants it ended. Everyone, I want to see it ended too.
On tonight's Common Ground segment, how the U.S. should deal with China. Joining us, House Select China Committee Chairman John Molinar and also Ranking Member Ro Khanna. Let me start with you, Mr. Chairman. Iran and how this plays out and what it means for China at this moment. How does that factor in?
Well, China is a tremendous enabler of Iran as well as Russia, as well as North Korea. And so when you see that Iran is struggling, China buys 90% of Iran's oil, this definitely affects China. And so I think it strategically benefits us to make sure that we don't allow China to continue to have this leverage buying this sanctioned illicit oil from Iran.
Congressman Khanna, China's spokesperson put out a statement saying with the temporary ceasefire agreement still in place, the U.S. ramped up military deployment, resorted to a targeted blockade. This will only aggravate confrontation, escalate tension, undermine the already fragile ceasefire, further jeopardize safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a dangerous, irresponsible move. They obviously would say that, and that a lot of their oil goes through the strait.
Well, my biggest concern with China is their monopoly on rare earths, and I think the chairman would agree that's absolutely unacceptable. They shouldn't be threatening the United States with their leverage on rare earths, and we need to have rare earth independence from China. The whole world does. But on the war, I oppose the war, and I don't believe that it has made us safer. In fact, I'm concerned whether China is going to have more influence on the new Iranian regime, and I'm concerned whether they're going to assist Iran with the redevelopment. I think we can all agree we want the Strait of Hormuz to be open, and we don't want Iranian or Chinese influence in controlling the free passage of ships.
What are some of the foreign policy strategies for China and what their goals are as the president gets ready to head to Beijing next month?
Well, China has tremendous leverage over the world when it comes to these critical minerals, rare earths. We use them in our phones and our military applications and all these different appliances. And they were threatening to fire a loaded gun at the world economy when they threatened to cut off those critical minerals. And so they will use that kind of leverage. And so we need to be mindful here in the United States to onshore these kinds of production, as well as working with like-minded allies to prevent China from exercising that kind of control.
And Congressman Khanna, you all work together on this front. You both see China as a substantial threat long term.
Absolutely, on their monopoly on rare earths and critical minerals, their monopoly on key starting materials for pharmaceuticals. I appreciate the leadership the chairman showed. He had a bipartisan hearing showing the dependence that we have for basic antibiotics on Chinese pharmaceutical ingredients. We need independence when it comes to rare earths and critical minerals with us and our allies, and we need it for key pharmaceutical ingredients. It's good not just for America, it's good for the world. China's acting as a monopolist, and it's not right.
You all have been working together for a while on this committee. For people, Mr. Chairman, who say, it's too partisan up here in Washington, nothing gets done, not reaching across the aisle, what do you say to them?
Well, it is too partisan. I believe that our China committee has worked together in the national interest. We've been looking at this relationship with China, and it's vital that we get this right. We have our national security implications, our economic security. We have to win this technology competition with China. And we also have to speak out on the human rights violations in China and contrast that with what we are celebrating here in the United States with our 250th anniversary and the human dignity that we are guaranteed by our founding principles.
Final word, Congressman Khanna.
Well, even when the chairman and I disagree, he's really run this committee with integrity. He happened to marry up. I've traveled with him and his wife is very gracious. So he's a well-liked member of Congress, and he's kept the disagreements to be on policy, not personal. And I wish more of Congress operated that way, where you can have sharp disagreements on policy, but you treat each other with respect and kindness. And on China, there are a lot of areas where we're Team America, and it's about America's national interests.
Well, we appreciate both of you coming in today on Common Ground. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You can see all the Common Ground segments on my podcast, Common Ground. Find that and the All-Star Panel podcast under the All-Star Panel podcast, Brett Baer podcast at foxnewspodcast.com, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. You can also see the discussion on the Fox News YouTube page. Common Ground was recorded before confirmation that the Iranian ship boarded by Marines in the Gulf this weekend had recently traveled through Chinese ports and contained chemical shipments for missiles, possibly a direct example of China helping prop up the Iranian regime. Up next, the panel with the latest on the Iran conflict and political developments here in Washington.
Agree to meet with them, let alone agree to open up the strait.
I think things are actually going quite well for the United States. I think we are not too far away from a deal.
We have a more hardline regime there. Khamenei Jr. actually wants to develop nuclear weapons. Does anyone believe that we actually have more leverage?
We got this incredible economic leverage on them, which is simply shut down all of their revenue sources.
Well, there is a lot of confusion about what comes next as they get ready for more talks, potentially in Islamabad. This weekend, U.S. Central Command put out a statement. The Marines rappelled onto an Iranian-flagged vessel April 19th after guided missile destroyer USS Spruance disabled Tuska, that ship's propulsion, when the commercial ship failed to comply with repeated warnings from U.S. forces over a 6-hour period. And I mentioned that earlier. If you look at the strait, you can see there are ships moving, not as many, obviously, as always. It's not completely closed, but the Iranians have fired on vessels, including on an Iranian vessel that came under distress, trying to get through. Take a listen.
Navy, you get me clearance. You get me clearance to go. Navy, this is Motorango Salman Haidar. You get me clearance to go. My name second on your list. You get me clearance to go. You are fighting now. Let me turn back.
That was actually an Indian vessel, but you can see the confusion and chaos going through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's bring in our panel. Annie Linsky is White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Susan Page, Washington bureau chief at USA Today, and Fox News political analyst Guy Benson. There's just this confusion around the whole thing, Guy, and we don't know at this hour whether these talks are going to happen in Islamabad.
That's one of the biggest sources of confusion. We were talking about this on the radio earlier. There are reports out there that the Pakistani mediators have been trying to diffuse these volcanic eruptions among the Iranian delegation because they're so angry at each other.
Yeah, exactly. The negotiations are not fighting between the two sides, but in one side.
Right, it's infighting on the Iranian side. Unclear what we're doing and who we're sending. And let's say, God willing, a deal could be struck. With whom are we striking the deal? And do they have the authority to actually agree to it or implement it? That's also an X factor. So they're clearly in a very bad place, the regime. Total chaos, which is bad news for them and therefore good news to us, but not necessarily great news about an imminent deal being realistic, perhaps.
Yeah, Susan, The Economist writes it this way. Which Iran is America dealing with? The conflicting messages coming out of Iran are a sign of something significant. A power struggle is underway in the Islamic Republic. Iranian delegations dispatched for talks with America are usually lean, disciplined, and tightly briefed. The Islamabad one was anything but. Their arguments were so ferocious that Pakistani mediators are reported to have spent as much time refereeing among the Iranians as engaging the Americans. One side is political with words. The other side has guns, the IRGC, and they are using them.
That's right. And it's clear that President Trump wants to make a deal, is ready to make a deal. Some of the Iranians are ready to make a deal, but not others. The problem I think that President Trump has is, while we have this incredible military superiority, they have the leverage of time, because Iran does not need to pay very much attention to the concerns of the Iranian public about this war. But President Trump needs to pay some concern to the views of Americans, and 2/3 of Americans want this war over. Don't think it was a good idea from the start.
All right, here's the
Thanks to
US
the
ambassador to
traitors
the United Nations.
we have in this country.
Anybody who has dealt with the Iranians will tell you it is often 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. They cheated over the years, which is one of the reasons that President Trump withdrew us from the JCPOA. They were hiding sites. They were hiding capabilities. We have to take the perspective that we're not waiting, we're not trusting. We are reducing their capabilities.
But the ceasefire's come to an end, and the question is, do we go full blast back into blasting Iran?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and certainly Trump's rhetoric does not suggest that he has the kind of patience for the Iranians stringing the United States along. And to your point, that ceasefire does come to an end. There are a lot of people in Trump's ear, pushing him to, as they say, finish the job, and that could involve additional bombing, certainly, and it is possible that that could also involve some amount of boots on the ground if they're really going to push the Iranians for, as Trump calls it, the nuclear dust, and to reopen the strait.
The Chinese president called the Saudi crown prince, saying you need to open the strait. The Saudi crown prince doesn't have control over the Strait of Hormuz, but China's obviously concerned about it. At the same time, this Iranian vessel is boarded. It contains Chinese delivered port things, including chemicals for missiles in Iran, it looks like.
Which is not necessarily surprising, but provocative. The Chinese are getting squeezed here, as is the Iranian economy, so the Chinese clearly have a real interest in getting some of this cleared up, which might be outside pressure that might help bring this to some sort of conclusion, but again, it's a guessing game right now.
A guessing game also in the Commonwealth of Virginia as we get ready for this. How about that transition? From Iran to Virginia. As we get ready for this redistricting back and forth, this referendum, here is sound on that.
We want fair maps. We want to make sure that our voice is heard. This is our chance to push back and say no to them by saying yes on Tuesday.
Going from a 6-5 map in a purple state to a 10-1 Democrat map is just a political partisanship to an extreme.
Now, Susan, it's important to point out that Republicans started this thing in Texas. Democrats have done it other places. Republicans have picked up the ball in Ohio and other places. This one seems like they're pushing the envelope too.
Oh yeah, a hypocrisy alert on all sides about this. But you'd think that this would pass easily because Democrats won everything in November, every statewide office just last November in Virginia. But the latest polls are closer, 4 or 5 points. Still would expect it to pass, but they're finding that while Democratic voters say yes, let's fight fire with fire, independent voters don't like this. And you look at that map, it looks like kind of a sunflower.
Yeah.
It does not look like a sensible, common sense, nonpartisan sort of map. So we'll see.
Virginia is kind of a purplish place. It's more purplish blue around Washington, D.C. But when Kamala Harris wins 46%, it's tough to back up the thing that 10 Democrats are going to take over the Commonwealth.
That is a head scratcher for sure. On Tuesday, I'm really going to be looking for the rural vote here, and I think that can tell you a lot about Trump's standing. I mean, this is really being set up as a test on Trump and a vote. Referendum on his leadership, and so the rural areas of the state, which really will be impacted the most, because they are the ones that are suddenly going to have representation in Washington that comes from the core liberal parts of the state.
And it's a nationwide thing, as I talked with Britt Guy, and it could impact how the midterms look. Democrats look well positioned now, but who knows?
Well, that's what this is about. It's about the Democrats trying to gain 4 seats, but they're marketing it as an exercise in fairness, which is just so insulting given what the map looks like. And the fact that a 6-5 map currently, that's what we now have in Virginia, one of the fairest maps in the country, would go 10-1, arguably the most gerrymandered map in the entire country. One example is Fairfax County, very big, very blue county in Northern Virginia. There will be 5 congressional districts running through that county. You can have 5 Democrats representing 5 different seats, all living in their districts and in Fairfax County. It's crazy.
There you go. Panel, thanks. Tomorrow's special report, another Common Ground segment with the CEO and founder of Unite, Tim Shriver, on what Americans think about political polarization in this country. Remember, if you can't catch us live, set your DVR, 6 p.m. in the East, 3 p.m. on the West Coast. You can follow me on TikTok, X, and Instagram, @BrettBaer, for exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight and every night. That's it for the special report. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. The Ingram Angle is now.